Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful half front shaker. I'm going to be using some new products from Picket Fence Studios for this card, but you could use it on any style of card. We're going to start out here with the absolutely adorable Peter Bunny and Friends stamps. I love this little bunny in the teacup. It has kind of an Alice in Wonderland feel to me. He's holding his little pocket watch there. So I'm stamping this out in some Copic friendly ink so that way I can do some alcohol marker coloring. For the teacup, I'm using V12, V15, and V17. And to blend each color together, I'm actually doing a fun technique. I've used this a lot recently and I find it really, really helpful, where I will draw out one color on my glass mat and then use another color to pick some of that up, and it'll give you a nice in-between. And by doing that, I'm able to accomplish a more seamless blend between the shades of color and really give you the look of shading on this teacup. I'm really happy with how this turned out. For the pink on the teacup, I'm using R81 and R85. And you can see it's darker on the edges, and then as it goes towards the center right, that's where it's getting to the lightest color. And that gives the kind of illusion of light hitting that area of the teacup. So the sides are in shadow versus that center right area being hit by the light. And that was the look I was going for there. For the jacket, I used that same R81 and R85. For the bow tie, as well as the flowers and the hat band, I'm coming in with RV23 and RV29. These are really nice red-violet colors. They are a pink, but they have a little bit of a purple tone to them. So as you can tell, I've got pinks and purples going on for my theme here. I just felt like this was so springy, Eastery, and it really made me wish for warmer weather. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for it to get warm. It is a balmy 20 degrees here with the wind chill. I know it's much colder for a lot of you right now with the winter storms across the country. So if you are cold like me and you want it to warm up, get in your craft room and maybe get some of your fun spring stamps out and start looking towards warmer weather. We can all appreciate that, I think. Unless, I know I do have some friends who are kind of snow bunnies and love the snow and the cold. That is not my jam. So more power to you guys that like that. All right, so for the leaves, I am using YG09 and G07. And you saw there up at the top for the hat, I used BV02 and BV31 to give a nice pale lilac color. I really like how that turned out. For the bird, I'm going to come up at the top there and I'm going to be using Y08 and Y15. And then I'm going to be doing some shading on the bunny with W0. Now, shading when you're doing something that you want to look white, especially if it's an animal, it generally works well to use like a W0 or a W1, or you might want to use a neutral color, a neutral gray. I tend to not use cool grays when I'm shading animals because I think the warm gray just gives them a little bit more of a lifelike appearance. Now, this is the Easter egg time stamp. It is a seamless stamp, which is really nice so that you can stamp it as many times as you want just by lining up the edge. So you could do a large sheet of paper, or you could just use it on its own, which is what I'm doing here. And you can see I stamped down some Distress Oxide in Seedless Preserves, and then I am stamping it onto this light purple paper. When I am stamping with Distress Oxides, I generally like to put my finger on the center of the pad as well as holding it on the edges so I can press down really well, because that really gets the ink out of the ink pad and onto the stamp. So keep that in mind if you have any trouble with stamping with Distress Oxides. You do need to push down a little bit harder on that ink pad to get the ink flowing. Now, I'm newer to colored pencils, but I bought myself some for my birthday back in January, and I've had them sitting in a drawer, and I broke them out for two different cards recently, this one and another one. And on this one, I decided to pull out the pink and the white and add just some pretty details to these Easter eggs. I am really enjoying these colored pencils. I didn't think I would like them actually as much as I do. So I'm a little sad I didn't bite the bullet and purchase some colored pencils earlier, especially the white colored pencil. I was really surprised by how easily it goes on to the colored cardstock and shows up as a bright white. This is an awesome way to easily accent a card is to come in with some colored pencils. So I definitely recommend giving it a try. I am going to be using these, I think, more often now that I have them. And you don't have to buy a huge pack of them to start out with. You could just get some basic colors so you can get the feel for them. There are tons and tons of videos out there that talk about colored pencils. So I'm definitely not a colored pencil expert, but you just get better with practice. So you're going to see me using these here and there in my videos. But look at that white, you guys. Isn't it just amazing? It goes on and just really pops on the card. I love how that looks, and it's actually a lot easier to use than a white gel pen. For my shaker, I'm using the Easter on Parade Sequin mix. This is so cute. It's got all of these little bunny pieces and beautiful colors and little beads. I love it. I trimmed down the purple piece, and I am coming around here with some double-sided tape all the way around the edges. And I'm using some cellophane. They're called shaker sheets. They're from Picket Fence Studios. And essentially they are these large, I think they're 12 by 12 sheets of cellophane. And so they're really handy to have around. It's similar to stamp packaging, but they're not all wrinkled or dirty. They come in really nice packaging, so you don't have to worry about that. And they are great to have around to do full front shakers, or in this case, a half front shaker. So I have trimmed it so that there's about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the purple piece. And now I'm just folding each side up and over very carefully on 3 sides of the purple piece. And you do want to take your time when you're folding it up and over, because you want to make sure to get a nice straight edge, but you'll also want to make sure you don't do it too tight, because you want to make sure that you have a little bit of space in there to add your shaker mix and so that it can move around. Now that I have 3 sides done, I'm going to go ahead and put my shaker mix in there. And the nice thing about doing it this way is it's super easy to add and remove shaker mix, so that way you can make sure you get exactly the amount that you want in there. And then once you have what you want, you can go ahead and fold over the remaining piece of the shaker sheet, the cellophane there, so that it adheres to the last piece of that double-sided tape. Now, once everything's all folded over, you do want to make sure to go back in with your scissors and trim any little excess pieces of the cellophane that from where they overlap, because you do want to try and make sure this is flat down on your card front. Just be careful though, you don't want to trim too much. So you'll see what I'm saying when you try this out, but you don't want to trim too much off, because then you could potentially cut a hole or something like that where your shaker mix could potentially escape from. So at this point, as I was getting ready to put the card together, I decided that my bunny needed something around the edges. I decided to use some G000. This is a very pale green. It's a really pretty color. It complements with the pink, and it just gives kind of this halo effect around the bunny, makes it so it's a little bit more 3D, because it feels like there's something behind him. You don't know what it is, but there's something there going around the edges. So that's something to try out if you are looking at a card and going, oh, my stamped image looks kind of flat. Bring in a really light tone of a complementary color and put it all the way around your image. I'm heat embossing my sentiment here on a strip of black cardstock. This is from that same Peter Bunny and Friends stamp set. It says Spring is Sprung. So I used some anti-static powder tools, stamped that in some VersaMark embossing ink, and now I can come in with some fine detail white embossing powder. I've mentioned this before, but if you struggle at all with heat embossing with white embossing powder, a good thing to try is white pigment ink instead of VersaMark embossing ink or clear embossing ink. A lot of people have good luck using white pigment ink. I have used several different white pigment inks and some work better than others. So give it a try though if you struggle. It does make it a lot easier for some people. Okay, so now we get to finish putting the card together. You can see I trimmed my bunny piece down so that it fits on the top half of a slimline sized card. And I've got some very, very sticky double-sided tape on the back here of my shaker piece, so that way I can put it on the bottom part of the card. And then I'm going to bring that sentiment strip right across the center between the two halves of the card. It is really easy to do this style of half front shaker if you are using a sentiment strip, because you just run that sentiment strip right along the two parts, and you could put some foam tape behind the sentiment strip in order to kind of have it popped up on the part that is not on the shaker window. I felt like I didn't need to do that with this card, but it will vary depending on the style of card that you're making. So keep that in mind. I could have left it here, but I did decide to come in with the A Bow for Any Reason dies. These are really cute. There are all these different bow dies that can be used throughout the year on whatever project you're working on. You'll find a bow that you can put on there, and I've cut two out of this cute little bow, and I just sort of offset them a little bit so that you can see that darker pink shadow layer underneath the light pink. And then I'm going to glue this to the teacup to add a kind of a 3D element. I felt like there needed to be something on top of everything, so I thought this bow worked really well for that. And then I'm going to come in with the same Easter on Parade sequin mix, and I picked out just one little sequin to add to the center of that bow to give a little bit of bling, and it kind of ties in the sequins on the bottom portion of the card with the top portion of the card. All right, guys, that finishes up my card. I hope you picked up some fun tips and tricks today. I do hope you try out this half front shaker. Be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.